Hello everyone, my name is Alina. This is my presentation for the capstone project for global affairs and human security, spring 2026. My project is titled Corruption as the Driver of Outmigration in Eastern Europe between the years 2000 to 2005. Before I discuss the research I've done and the findings, I would like to do a little positionality statement. I myself am from Eastern European origin. I'm Ukrainian American. I emigrated as a small child, so I didn't have a say of where I'm going or when or for how long. And the study was done out of curiosity because being a little older, I would ask my mom, why did we leave? Why are we here now? And she would always answer that life became very difficult to survive in Ukraine. We lived there through the 90s and emigrated in late 90s, 99. So this research was done out of personal curiosity. Today, we will discuss the vocabulary words that will be used, the situational analysis or the problem, the methods that were used to collect data and to run the findings, what were the findings, the roadmap to some suggestions, both short-term and long-term, as well as the implications. Terms emigrate, out migration, and to migrate will be used interchangeably as it relates to one region, Eastern Europe. Corruption is the abuse of entrusted power for private gain. That is a Transparency International definition. You can think of corruption as petty bribes, extortion, high-level business dealings where money laundering comes into play, being able to skip the line by paying an extra few dollars here and there, having your paperwork filed quicker, things like that. A refugee and asylum seeker is as defined by the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. A refugee is typically a person who fears persecution from their country of origin and is unable to return because of some real physical harm that will come to this person. So typically refugees leave in a hurry, having very little time to gather things, physical things, paper, and so on. An asylum seeker, on the other hand, might have some time to get ready and plan their route. An asylum seeker typically seeks permission from a state, sometimes several states, to see who is able and willing to accept them and to give them protection. This is typically done in a nation that is outside of the asylum seeker's original nationality. Eastern Europe, as defined by the United Nations, consists of the following countries: Belarus, Czechia, Hungary, Moldova, Poland, Romania, Russia, the European part, Slovakia, and Ukraine. For the situational analysis, it's after the collapse of the Soviet Union that emigration began reshaping the residents across Eastern Europe. People have had the opportunity to leave, so they took an opportunity to leave. Corruption is an under-examined factor which influences why individuals leave their countries of origin. The people that are able and willing to leave first are typically high-skilled workers, people who are experts in their field, licensed professionals, think of medical professionals, and low-level bureaucrats, people who have made enough money to emigrate out. And with them, all of these people take a certain knowledge of how the state works, of how the region works, of how their local town works. And it creates a real deficit in not just population, but in the working knowledge of everything. It also opens up for bad actors to take and fill that place of licensed professionals and skilled workers. So perhaps the kind of results you get aren't the best or compared to the best when it comes worldwide. So that really hurts the region long term. When these individuals leave, typically something called brain drain occurs. A brain drain is when these skilled individuals, professionals, leave taking the knowledge with them. So again, it really hurts the town, the state, the region as a whole, and long term as well. Depopulation also occurs, maybe a little bit quicker too. It's not just what the birth rate is to the replacement death rate. It is also just individuals not returning. The study I've conducted is a quantitative correlational study, which examines the relationship between corruption and emigration in Eastern Europe between the years 2000 to 2005. This study samples data from the Corruption Perception Index. This is something that is collected by Transparency International every year, along with data from Our World in Data, which captures migrants who identify as asylum seekers as well as refugees. Statistical analysis were conducted, correlational and linear regressions were run to see if there is a relationship between the variables. Key findings from the results. Number one, there was a moderate positive non-significant relationship between corruption and migrants who identify as asylum seekers. Number two, a strong positive significant relationship between corruption and migrants who identify as refugees. And finding number three suggests that to the population as a whole, 52% of individuals who identified as refugees left country of origin due to high levels of reported corruption. A very popular motto in the social sciences, and any time correlation is involved, is correlation does not equal causation. So because the two variables you are looking at have a relationship, that doesn't mean that it's the only variable that affects the change. Why is a correlational study done for this capstone presentation? I wanted to see if there was a pattern or a trend relating to the region over time. I looked at the early 2000s because from the collapse of the Soviet Union and all the troubles that came with it in the region, we do see that people felt that and started to try and survive somehow. A lot of people made the decision to outmigrate. Other variables would be poor governance, human rights violations, organized crime that really peaked in the 90s throughout the region. Over here is an image from a Ukrainian film called Rhino Nosorich. It was from 2021, and it depicts what life was like in the 90s during the turbulent times where there was poor governance and human rights violations, as well as economic uncertainty. And family reunification would be something that adds to outmigration. If a person in your family has already settled elsewhere out of the region and they've established roots, some states allow you to have family reunification as a reason to migrate and to ask for a status, a residency status within a state. This also creates migration networks. So there are a lot of other reasons as to why the Eastern European region is experiencing depopulation and brain drain. The roadmap for immediate steps and long-term actions could be providing and maintaining anti-corruption training. This is something that other nations in the region have done since the early 2000s, such as Poland and Czechia, setting up ethical training for their public servants. Accountability and transparency, this is something that many nations all over the world, not just in the Eastern European region, are trying to work towards. And then protections for whistleblowers, and also just having it be a part of daily life and yearly life to be able to monitor public expenditure on a national level. All those things can start happening from a month to 6 month time period, but it really will take much longer for this kind of issue to begin to resolve itself. Not resolve itself fully. That is something that will take many, many generations. For long term, monitoring the progress that has been established in the 6 month period or so, and aligning the government standards to what it is that you want to see in anti-corruption reform and change. Anti-corruption education, something that can be normalized from a young age all the way into your adulthood. Something that a state should really take serious when trying to combat this issue. Institutional reforms, again, many countries in the region have taken on their own personal idea of what a reform for anti-corruption should look like and would look like long term. Revisiting this and editing over time is also very important, as well as maintaining independent agencies away from the state that are able to really monitor the individuals it should be monitoring. Again, as I stated, this is something that will take many years to start to be normalized, because at the end it is a behavioral change you're asking. It's also a cultural change, trying to shed yourself of the residual kind of normal cultural, social, political interactions from the Soviet Union times. So this is a work in progress. Overall, the study that I've conducted does add to the literature of a underexamined issue and an underexamined time period as well, the early 2000s. From this study, we can see that corruption is significantly linked to outmigration in the Eastern European region, especially among individuals who identify as refugees. In order to support long-term regional stability and to promote good governance and strong institutions, corruption must be addressed. Thank you for your time. Thank you for watching this presentation. I welcome any questions. I hope you have a wonderful day.